Welcome to ET Catalyse. Today in episode 5, we'll discuss responsible marketing. And joining me in this conversation are Welcome to the 5th episode of ET Catalyse. Today we'll discuss responsible marketing. Praval, if I can ask you, why is it that marketing needs to be responsible? Has it been reckless?
I feel the onus is on us marketers because we stressed it too far on the other side of the spectrum, including tactics as part of the marketing so-called strategy, that it's time to go back to being responsible, being more genuine with our efforts for marketing.
Why do you think we've had to go back to being responsible about marketing? Were the ethical lines blurred somewhere?
Yes, I mean, if you look at fundamentally, marketing is about talking to your audience using different formats and mediums, offering them a solution, solving their problem essentially. Right? It's as simple as that. But in the recent years, using the tools and the processes and methods, most of us marketers have sort of abused that channel, right? That we supposedly were supposed to use genuinely. And it happens in not just marketing, if you look at it. I like to take this example often enough. Packaged food, right? You see this label called non-GMO food. Where does it come from? Food historically was always non-GMO, right? We went on that side of the spectrum that today we realize that wasn't right, and we came up with this term called non-GMO, right? And now that's how we market those packaged food items now. Similarly in marketing, right? There's a conscious effort now, if not in all, in many companies, where we value the genuinity in marketing, where we value the traits of a marketer. And it's not about going out at all costs, right? There is a sense of genuinity involved in our messaging, in our value creation, in our story. Right? That's how I look at it.
Siddhartha, on the word responsible, AirAsia, which has very clearly genesis for India, at least from the Tata Group.
Yes.
And Tata Group is known for being responsible about various businesses and the way it conducts. How does the word responsible get interpreted in the group?
I think in the case of the Tata Group, responsibility is in the very genesis of why the business was founded. If you look back at the founding values of Jamsetji Tata when he founded the business, the core value that they were looking at is that they need to create value for the community. And giving back to the community is something that is essentially the purpose of business rather than profit. Profit is incidental. You need to be able to make profit so that you can contribute back to the community. And when you have that nature and responsibility at the core ethos of the business, then you don't need to consciously be responsible. It is the very purpose of business to exist in the first place. And that allows a significant competitive advantage in many ways. One, the trust that it creates over a longer period of time. Two, the nature in which the business plans, its orientation is more towards longer term goals. It's towards long-term stakeholder value creation and not, for instance, quarterly profits. And the third is that you begin over a period of time to attract the right kind of talent. And you have principles that bind the group together, such as the Tata Code of Conduct, which our Chairman Emeritus Ratan Tata had.
How do you marry the agenda of marketing, which is essentially to sell your wares?
Yes.
And maybe figure out one USP or unique selling proposition. Some of them, like Praval said, found GMO to be one, and then use that as a leverage to go about it. Is being responsible and being able to market it does it come at, as a contradiction, or can it be really done with full ethics and moral responsibilities?
I don't think that there's a contradiction. To the contrary, I think that responsibility and marketing go hand in hand to the extent that you can't market without being responsible. I go back to the premise that I learned when I joined the Tata Group, for instance, was that the ability for organizations to derive a competitive advantage used to be from the ownership of product assets. It then moved into the ownership of technological assets. But the future firmly is that the competitive advantage that organizations will be able to derive is from the ownership of moral assets. That consciousness that consumers have now, especially with the democratization of social media, with the nature of regulation happening across the world, is very much going towards that trend that if you're not responsible, you will not exist in the future.
Sandeep, the startup culture really advocates go get it. But how can you really be responsible and still get it?
Right. Now, first of all, that's a great question. So I would say that as a startup, obviously, there are a lot of different type of pressure. You have limited window of opportunity where you must establish all your vision, mission, and all other things. And most of the things are not even in your favor. But in my view, creating a world-class company from a startup to maybe a Fortune 500 company and doing a responsible marketing are not mutually exclusive. If the business is because of marketing, I think there's a problem. But if the marketing is because of business, I think it will work out fine. Second is, there's a self-correcting mechanism. So, for example, if I'm too aggressive in marketing, I may have a lower net promoter score. This is the customer satisfaction, and in a startup company, as it is, there are a lot of things which are not perfect or ready for prime time. Second is, when the investor is coming, he will look into your repeat buying behavior and customer behavior. Third is a lot of information, especially consumer internet companies. A lot of things get discussed publicly on social media and other community platforms. All those also bring moment of truth.
So all these elements are the three that you talked about. How often do you measure and then go about changing the course or making the changes so required?
See, it's an iterative process. Even a startup, like everything we work, our main proposition, forget about marketing, our own main proposition goes through thousands of iteration and prototype. Then only we can give a world-class experience. So that is inherently a DNA, but that also transpires in everything. So like the two startup companies I founded, let's say net promoter score in the beginning may happen only in 6 months because probably we already know the experience really is not ready for prime time. Then frequently, then it will come down to maybe quarterly. There's no science behind it, but most of the companies at some level of scale will do these kind of things on a monthly basis, like a net promoter score. And then for funding wise, like the investors will always look for, if there's a long-term high quality investors coming on board, he will absolutely look for your repeat buying behavior and other things which customer has to say about your product and offerings.
The other thing that comes about when it comes to marketing is the word responsible actually got coined because, like we earlier discussed, when you stop tracking, the cookies let you know exactly everything the person is, and you customize ads as per it.
Interestingly, look at this. Look at your phone, for example. Our phones know everything about us. Where we are right now, who do we talk to, how much do we, browse the internet, or how long are we on Instagram, all of that. The phone knows all of that. That's okay.
The phone knows, the phone company knows.
Right. But then
if it's a Chinese phone, everyone fears the Chinese knows.
Well, what you do with that information, what does the phone do with that information is what the problem is. Knowing is not a problem. You cannot, if you really want to be in a world where nobody knows what you're doing, you have to cut costs and cut signals with everything. That's not possible, right?
But you reckon the sense of privacy, or at least the need for it, that is being talked about, is it overdone?
Not really. See, it's not just about ads. There have been cases where some of the largest companies in the world have been tying up with other third parties for your data, right? Think of something like this. Your financial data, your health records, all of that is being traded, okay, without even your explicit permission, without your consent.
But there are entire companies and services built on that. So
absolutely,
medical apps which sign up for a doctor, they they require all that information before they sign you up for a doctor because they need to know certain basics. Now, where does this end? Because I'll just come to you, Siddharth. For an airline, it is very important, especially during sales, to be able to track and understand is this person potentially going to convert at this price point. It's a very dynamic pricing, airline business. Tickets can be bought at the cheapest and the most expensive rates. For you, that data and information is critical to be able to drive conversions, on the privacy part of it that we were discussing. Where do you think an airline company or an e-commerce company needs to stop tracking?
Usage of the data is done at an aggregate level to understand consumer behavior and tailor your product to meet the expectations of a consumer. You're still doing something that is in the interest of the consumer. Once you begin to monetize the data to maximize the amount that I can extract out of you for the same product, then you start going into the realm of doing something which is irresponsible. And I think it's been said many times, including one of the reporters in The Guardian in the context of digital and social media, that if you're not paying for the product, and many of us are not paying for products like Google or Facebook, then in essence you are the product. Somebody is paying for that, whether it's advertisers or whoever. If these organizations need to monetize something and it's not a subscription model, then it is the data they're monetizing.
That's interesting. So you reckon Google search as a paid service could be one of the answers?
Google search
for Google to be responsible about its marketing.
I think Google has, at least over a period of time, begun to get more conscious of the manner in which that data is being used, and it has to, given the sheer volume of data that they have. Of course, every organization, especially the larger organizations, have a competitive advantage in once they have that volume of data, then creating a barrier of entry for other organizations to be able to have the same quantum of data. Tobacco companies have the same advantage when they stop tobacco advertising once they have a majority market share. So the reasons for these organizations to do that may vary, but the trend is certainly going towards the right direction, that individuals should have the ability, and that's where legislation and consciousness will ultimately go, I think, to be able to monetize their own data. The data that I have shared, whether it's with a telecom service provider or a social media platform or through Google, is ultimately my data. And I should have the ability to monetize that data myself, should I choose to, or not monetize it and thereby not be able to pay, or to be able to get that premium.
Sandeep, digital medium is able to track almost to the last mile, last minute, last activity of a reader. Unlike print and television or radio, there's a lot of data that a digital medium offers, and marketing in the digital realm happens. That's why is it for the digital marketer and also for the digital advertising and publishing community to figure out and do a self-correcting mechanism that you were alluding to earlier and become responsible about marketing?
Right. So, the moment any data is digital, it is now trackable, scannable, traceable, analyzable, and surveyable. It is also the data which we are now looking for.
And I'll add another one, it's saleable.
Saleable, yes, absolutely. So, but it was always, actually historically also it was, but it's just a Darwinian theory of evolution. In the past, in 1965, if you went somewhere and stayed in a hotel, the credit card company still knew, whether you stayed in that hotel, right? Beyond, not just the hotel, right? And how long did you stay? What all you consume? Did you consume the liquor? Did you consume the food? Did you order the dessert? So my point is, information always existed. Privacy violation, some of the things which he highlighted, or abusing the data without your consent, all those things are, in my view, are unethical practice, right? But whatever we see in a digital side is just a natural Darwinian theory of evolution. Use of technology only makes human life better and standard of living going up. But yes, there I think we and especially because internet by nature was more open. After 26 years of internet, we are now realizing that some places we need to either have more pronounced rules and regulation and policies. And if you, last 3 years, the entire world has, first of all, when internet was started, there was Digital Millennium Act in USA. In India, it is Information Technology Act. And every country which has even 2 million or more in internet population has a well-defined years, because of the heavy adoption of social media platforms, more heavier privacy policies, cookies, and what do we do with information, more scrutiny and check and balances have come, and those are the welcome changes. So overall, I would say just, the data was always there, it always existed, it was used. Our ability to use it fast, our ability to use it more often, our ability to use it at no cost has gone up. So that also brings, I would say, more responsibility in terms of privacy and consent, etc.
Because a brand derives its value from the promise that it gives without promising to the brand. It is what else you're going to be able to get into the hands of the consumer and what the larger organization behind that stands for. That is what people are willing to be updated for.
So, on the brand point, Siddharth, you work with multiple brands within the Tata Group itself. How do you go about planning a sort of, safety net around all your brands? Because everyone needs to very clearly protect the brand at any cost. The sales can, take a dip, but the brand quality and the brand promise should not ever. How does it happen at your business, and especially at AirAsia, where a wrong meal served or an untimely scheduled flight can actually hit the brand? So it's not even marketing; it's just being core, to the promise of the airline.
Yes, I think that's where it becomes interesting, because there's an ability to leverage the brand that group companies have because of the nature of the promise that is inherent in the Tata brand. But at the same time, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that to ensure that the service you're delivering or the product you're delivering does not dilute, because anything which impacts you might impact a much larger ecosystem. There's many layers of it. I think each organization operates in its own environment of its brand and its customers. But at the same time, there is a common ethos that steeps across the group that has to, at the backbone of it, come from a culture of the individuals who are marketing that brand and operating in those organizations. So at the very basic level, it really boils down to a culture and code of ethics that each individual has to have. Because you can lay down as many processes and systems to govern or control or put legislation or operating standards on. But if the individuals who are dealing with consumers on a daily basis, and that goes down to branch staff operations, to flight attendants, to individuals handling your social media pages, to even people at the back end who are managing, say, IT systems or financial systems or procurement, etc. If they are not trying to cut corners because they believe that inherently they are the kind of individuals who have tied in or joined that organization to serve that purpose, then
it's every single employee is the marketeer and the brand ambassador of the brand. So the ethos and the values have to be espoused by all of them.
Yes.
To be able to eventually communicate thereby in the conduct, in the behavior they conduct,
Yes.
way they conduct themselves will translate. Sandeep, on the online marketplace that you have now, is there a sense of responsibility varied when you move to the hinterland? Metro and urban metros and the customers there versus a customer in a tier 2, tier 3 town. Is the trust, once broken, too difficult to repair and mend for an urban versus a metro? How does it work in your experience?
The thing is, because we are a pure play internet company, so technically we are time and geography agnostic. But we theoretically we can control who will see our product and offerings, but it is available 24/7 in all geographies, all states, all cities, and all the time. So from that perspective, we cannot have multiple marketing message giving various degrees of promises. We have a core value proposition. That core value proposition message will always be same in marketing.
But do you have to customize your message?
Absolutely. At any
on a tier 3 town versus a tier 1?
So I don't know how it is there in a health company or a consumer electronic, mobile and CPG companies. But because we are a digital company, at any given point of time, we have probably close to 1,000 advertising campaigns going on. So by city, by country, by language, even by the product we are offering, we will have a marketing communication message. But the value proposition is one thing, which, like for example, we mentioned about Tata Group companies, what it stands for. Same way, what Droom stand for, that is always there. Do we choose different mechanism to communicate? Do we choose different language to communicate? Do we have different picture or storytelling for the same thing to drive home message home? Yes, that does vary. But overall, see, in internet, what you do is you don't create brand followed by its offering. We actually give offering a utility, and that automatically becomes brand. Internet, in fact, you don't come to say I come to create a brand. You actually come to offer a utility, and once utility is adopted by masses, and then the value propositions are established, that becomes brand.
Siddharth, being conscious about environment and being aware of what your communication messages are on it is sort of almost hygiene. Are the days over for communicating this and using this as marketing?
Yes, to a large extent, if you look at the fact that sustainability credentials have become a hygiene factor for most organizations, and the evolution of the market has really moved from just being core marketing of the product to many other things. My own role, for instance, in Asia India, looks after marketing, but at the same time also develops sustainability for the organization because the two have become so intrinsic. If you look at the previous role of the brand custodian for Catalyse as a brand, of the Tata brand, he also was the chief events officer and the head of global sustainability for the group. And the fact is that the three of these things, I think sustainability and marketing, have become so core and intrinsically intertwined that you can't afford to do one without the other. And to answer your question about communicating on it, it's a double-edged sword. I don't think that an organization, unless they can claim that they are far ahead of the curve in setting trends on sustainability credentials, can actually market themselves as being responsible. In my own role, for instance, there is no shying away from the fact that climate change is real and that the aviation industry contributes about 2% to carbon emissions. So for us to say that yes, we are participating in carbon offsetting as a program, or we have an agenda to be carbon neutral by 2025, does not cut any ice with consumers, because we're doing far less than the damage that has been done over the course of the last 50 odd years. That may not be specific to our industry, but it is contingent on every industry to be able to set right the wrongs that were heard in the past. And to communicate on that alone is not going to do it. Actually, will speak louder than words in this sense.
With so many guidelines now coming in, you got to be ethically responsible, morally responsible, socially responsible, digitally responsible. Is the role of the marketer and the ambit to play for marketing, is that really coming with so many guardrails that eventually it will all reduce to a simple messaging, or will there be still innovation left in it?
I think the opportunity for innovation comes with the fact that there are so many responsibilities that one needs to look into. Earlier, the creativity purely came in the ability to communicate a message in a creative manner. Now you need to actually have a competitive advantage in being digitally responsible and managing digital events all its platforms and plethora of different media in being socially responsible. And it is incumbent, therefore, on large organizations to be creative in the manner in which they are doing each of these things and selling the core product, which is not just the product, but this entire ecosystem that they are offering to the consumer. Because a brand derives its value from the promise that it gives, and that promise is not the product. It is what else you are doing to be able to get the product in the hands of the consumer and what the larger organization behind that stands for. And that's what people are willing to pay a premium for.
So in the internet industry, is it possible to be creative, innovative, and still be very responsible?
See, actually, in fact, in internet industry, you can have your cake and eat too. Like this is one medium where the development cost of marketing message is next to zero, and deployment time is next to zero, and you can create an ad anytime, deploy anytime, stop anytime, double down anytime.
That's the efficiency of the media.
That's right. Yeah, but that also transpires into the efficiency of your marketing messages. But just to answer your question, I feel that marketing message at the end of the day, the layers which we are talking about in terms of responsible marketing, whether it is social conscious, sustainability, privacy, or diversity and green earth, etc. These are at the end of the day, these are the voice of our
salespeople typically use CRM to store customer data. Leads would be there, for all of that would be there. Today, the CRM is sort of moving forward into more of a customer experience platform. So about the kind of experience you can deliver to your customers. Now, how do you deliver experience? How do you deliver something like personalization at scale? Without data, you can do that. I need to know that you are a frequent flyer to be able to give you a service in the real life. As a frequent flyer, that's data. But as a company, what do I do with that data? And where do I draw boundaries is what's important. So customer experience does thrive on user data. Right? And collecting data is not a problem. The problem is the intent or the nature of the business. What are you doing with that data as a company? If your revenue model is consultancy or selling that data to a third party to make money, that's where the problem is. The problem is not with the CRM, the problem is not with storing data, the problem is not with offering personalization. Smart companies do that and are doing it very well. But a lot of companies have sort of started to use that data, to make money because that's their revenue model. That's where the problem lies, I feel.
What's been your experience in that? How do you go about using data but not abusing them sense of privacy and all that?
I think to go back to the basic tenets of why how data has always been around to provide a degree of personalization. And there is a rule called the variant rule, which was set by the chief economist at Google, or variant, which is that what luxury consumers have today, 10 years from now, mid economy consumers will have, and the poor will have another 10 years from then. If you look at luxury consumers or luxury services, I was in luxury hospitality with the Taj for many years. Your personal butler always knew every little detail of your life. The concierge knew where you wanted to go. They recognized you. They recognized your family. They were able to provide a degree of service to you because of the nature of the relationship that you had with them. But that service came with a sworn secrecy. The service came with a sworn secrecy. Well, that's why you entrusted that data to the butler. And that is the nature of service that you need to replicate in today's digital age, which is to say, yes, I will provide you a personalized service. And you need to be able to entrust me with your data only for the purpose of providing that personalized service to you so that I can command a premium or a royalty from you versus taking your data and selling it somewhere else, because that is not a sustainable model.
So we've had some fascinating conversations today around responsible marketing. It's only when the transgression happened that the marketeers had to be told that you've got to start acting and behaving responsibility. But today the ambit of a marketeer has expanded to being concerned about environment, climate, ethics, morality. I think it's a very tough job, but it can still be innovative and be creative as the panelists today have described. So good luck to the marketeer, but there are interesting tips lined up for you in the next few episodes. Watch out for the next one, and thanks for switching in to the ET Catalyse episode 5 on responsible marketing.